Welcome back to Bunker Basics, where we answer completely fake questions from the AI, but pretend they're real for the sake of content. None of this medical, dental, vision, legal, financial, veterinary, or any advice about anything.
Do your own research.
Looking abandoned bunker, let's go. Open up your cans, it's time for Bunker Basics. Let's go. We're gonna answer fake questions. So get your drinks and sandwiches. Now let's hear it for the host, Chance Paladin.
Alright, so welcome back to another fantastic episode. Well, actually, not a new episode. This is a new series where I try to answer the AI asking stupid prepper questions, and then we see how we do. This is kind of born from the overwhelming amount of AI slop prepper videos out there. They've been pissing me off for months now, and they've released books of prepper slop that are crazy overpriced prepper slop, newbie AI prepper slop shit. And so I've been thinking for a while, you know, what are some different ways I can use AI, but still have it try to be fun and educational and actual human, and not listening to just that topical nonsense. Because I think AI can best be summarized as like optimistically wrong, like nonstop. So anyway, we're gonna go for it, and I'm gonna be tweaking this as we go, as if anyone cares, and if nobody cares, then I'm gonna stop worrying about it. All right, so first question. I have a situation. I'm a complete beginner who's just realized the world can get shaky, and I haven't stocked anything yet. What's the very first thing I should focus on building or stocking up to get started safely? Signed, Panicky Pete, the prep noob. Okay, Panicky Pete. Okay, obviously I need to tweak this a little bit because I need it to give me a little bit more context. It's funny, I think we go back and forth over what to stock first. A lot of people say food, a lot of people say medical, a lot of people say water. Speaking from experience, like prepping water is a pain. But I'll also say water seems to be the first thing to go. Conceivably, you could live without medical for quite a while. You could even live without food for quite a while. But like, I honestly can't even imagine how fat, like in an apartment complex or something, like once the power's out, you're screwed on water so fast. Or if there's like a hurricane, you know, chances are you're screwed on water so fast, whether you're in an apartment or a house or something. Even like with flooding here, you know, you could have a bajillion gallons of water and none of it be potable. Kind of the thought process that I ran into is a lot of people say, I've got a stream nearby. You know, you don't know if it's going to be snowing out or 100 billion degrees, or if there's going to be ambush teams waiting with the water. And so, you know, I used to think it's like I might have to trek 3 or 4 miles. And that's kind of what got me started. Like, well, now I need body armor. And then you know, you need a massive wheelbarrow to carry around even a couple days worth of water. So people have gone just crazy down the water rabbit hole to where I think Southern Prepper One had like those side by sides with a little kind of a bed on the back with like big water bladders. So in order to avoid all of that, storing potable water. But you know, you got to store it in smarter containers. Like I know Vision had those water cubes. Water cubes are really good. Having, you know, the big tub, you know, the bathtub, like water bladders, like things like that. There's a lot of you don't need. Well, chances are, unless it's the big one, which I don't you know, don't even bother prepping for the big one. It's too much to wrap your brain around. Water, I would get. And you don't do like my mom did, and for Y2K and use milk jug. That's just disgusting. Get some water. Get some water safe water jugs, or you know, food grade water jugs, and you know, it's a couple gallons per person per day, but you know, if you got to cook and clean with it, you know, and then figure out some non-watery way to clean yourself. Also, side note about water, everybody's like, oh, just get a bidet. I just have a bidet. I know so many people who just think that's the gotcha hack, you know, for TP, which I know this wasn't about, but if the grid goes down, why are you going to waste your water cleaning your bum? That just blows my mind, and I don't know why you'd waste water cleaning yourself when you can get wipes. And I can't remember who it was, but there was people making fun of dude wipes. And I want to say it was like some gals. And I thought it was kind of offensive in a weird way, because gals are already, I think, notoriously clean freaks. And I can't even imagine how much water they would go through keeping themselves. Yeah. It's like having some dude wipes and having some gal wipes and having some baby wipes. Anything to preserve as much of your water as possible. And then what a lot of people will point out is if you already have canned food, a lot of that canned food already has some kind of drinkable liquid in it. Anyway. Hope that helps, Panicky Pete. I know that's a lot. Water is like is just a crazy topic. People will point out, you know, there's water in your hot water tank. There's water in toilet tanks if you keep your toilet tank clean. I guess there's like water up in the transformers, which is kind of wacky. But don't do anything with that. That's terrible. Unless, you know that they're off the grid line. You know, getting water catchment off your roof. You know, there's a lot of oils on your roof, depending on what your roof was made out of. We have a composite roof, but I know they slapped that composite roof right on top of an old shingle roof. The roof needs to be completely redone. These clowns, before we moved in, just completely destroyed the roof. And it leaks and it's a whole problem. So, like, water, people will throw out some, like, BS hack. But, like, there's a couple things you can do. Alright. Question number 2. Oh, goody. Oh, I can't believe this. Question number 2. I have a situation. My family of 4 lives in an apartment with limited storage space, and we're starting from zero. How much water do we actually need to store, and what's the easiest, cheapest way to do it without turning your place into a warehouse? Wow, thanks. hydration, Harry the Anxious. Okay, clearly I didn't read these ahead of time, by the way, so I had no idea that the AI was going to do this. I would do the water bladders in each of the bathtubs, but you've got to, if there's like an earthquake, which is usually what people do with the water bladders, it's in case there's going to be an earthquake, or there starts to be the beginnings of earthquakes. That's typically the first thing you do. I would do water cubes. You can do 5-gallon jugs on sideways racks. And I didn't get into this with the first question, but rotating your water every 6 months, making sure it's bleached properly, make sure you shake it around for hydration. Plus 5-gallon jugs are just plain heavy, and if there's like a gal in the house, she can gals healthy gals can move 5-gallon jugs around, but they're not going to want to do it all the time. It gets really old. I'm a pretty strong, strapping young lad, and I effing hate moving 5-gallon water jugs around. And if you have 5-gallon water jugs that don't have the handle, what a pain. So I'd get water cubes. I'd get like 3-gallon. I don't know, what do they come in? 3 or 4-gallon water cubes. Because they're stackable, the problem is like you got to make sure you put them on load-bearing walls so you don't wipe out everyone below you. It's funny. I was going to start this episode with like, no, with 20% more no words. But, I don't know. It's funny, you stupid AI. Like, your problem's not turning, your apartment into a warehouse. Your problem is turning your apartment into a death trap. Like, water weighs a fortune. Doesn't weigh a fortune. It weighs a ton. That was weird. Thought I saw something. What happens at 1 a.m? Yeah, the problem is storage. One of the coolest things that I think I've seen is, depending on if you've got 4 people, like presumably 2, it's a man and a woman and 2 little monsters. But you probably only live in like a 2-bedroom apartment. I don't know anyone where they can live in or can afford a 3-bedroom apartment, but you can put water under the kids' beds in like water cubes. You just got to make sure and pull it all out and rotate it. But you could theoretically store a couple weeks of water in an apartment for 4 people and never notice. One of the cooler things that I've seen people do, even my roommates used to do this. If you're like on the bottom floor of an apartment, if you've got one of those water subscriptions, one of the easiest things to do, again, make sure you're paying them, compensating them for it and stuff, but like, just have them keep sending you more and more 5-gallon jugs of water, like a couple a week, and then nobody will notice. Nobody will notice that you're accumulating more 5-gallon jugs of water, except, it's just between you and the water company, the water delivery company. I would only do that on the first floor, though. I wouldn't wish carrying 5-gallon jugs up 2 or 3 flights of stairs. But yeah, there's a couple ways of doing it, but you've got other problems. If you have to store more than a week or 2 of water in an apartment, and you better have a bug out plan. Good grief. Yeah, because you're gonna just flushing the toilets alone in like the apartment takes water. Yeah, it's crazy. I would. All right. Well, this is fun. I hope everyone's having fun. Question number 3. I have a situation. Yeah, no shit, AI. I keep hearing about emergencies where people have to evacuate quickly, and I've never built any kind of emergency kit. What are the absolute must-have items for a bug out pack? Oh, wow. Wow, the AI really just like... This is... I did not plan this at all. This is weird. The must-haves for a bug out, and it's they say they have the AI says they have a family this time. Signed Bug Out Bob, the Bewildered. If you have kids, well, especially if they're little babies, little baby booger eaters, that's a totally like the mom probably already has a bug out bag just for the baby, because taking the baby anywhere requires an entire bug out bag. So take that. Things to entertain the kids as you're driving to grandma's house or whatever. Meclizine, motion sickness stuff, especially if you're going to be on the road for a long time, or Dramamine or Benadryl. Stuff to knock the kids out. Just because they're already going to be stressed out, and they're going to want to do stuff in the car, and they're going to be driving you insane. You probably got to talk to your wife about what the hell is going on without scaring the hell out of the kids. I think, although, like, if they're older, they can help you be lookout, and checking your sectors. So I would, when I was a kid, the most obvious thing was always like clothes. When it's funny, when we were in Boy Scouts, I'll never forget, like, when me and my brother packed for Boy Scouts, we always just took clothes. And they used to get so mad at us. Not so mad, they used to be constantly correcting us that we weren't taking, not, the other 9 things that you need, to go out in the wilderness. And I remember, I'll never forget this look on my brother's face. Like somehow I had kind of led him astray and kind of set him up to get dissed on by the older Boy Scouts. They were like, "You're in," they shook his backpack out and they were like, "This is only clothes." And he was like, "I don't know, what's wrong?" They're like, "Well, you need the rest." And he was really young. He'd been in, Weeblos. And you kind of just took clothes, like, and that sounds, the funny thing is though, like, in hindsight, there's so much to unpack with just making sure you take the right clothes. Like, me and my brother had, been camping like a million times, and you always just took clothes. Because it was kind of like a foregone conclusion that you were already going to have shelter and water and your tools and everything. So he never took an entire backpack of stuff. He just brought clothes, the appropriate, I don't know. It was kind of a weird, I was maybe 12 or 13 or something, and I remember like, crap, I gotta take better care of this kid. And then obviously everything was fine after that. I've been teaching him how to camp and prep forever, but it's I guess that's just a long way of saying, like, you've got to take clothes with you. But it's kind of stupid because clothes are probably one of the biggest, bulkiest things too. But, out of all the stuff for clothes, socks being number 1. And I definitely went camping before and took 0 pairs of underwear somehow. And it was kind of bitter. It was in kind of like a twist of irony later. My brother had accidentally packed like a pair of my underwear, and he's like, "Here you go." And so it's there was a lot more to that story because my tummy was sick. That was before I really it wasn't until I was an adult for quite a while before I really learned how to take care of my tummy. But taking things like Pepto, like tons and tons and tons and tons of Pepto, in case your kids have sick tummies, you have ways of deal. It's things like that you don't think of. Or like there was one time when we went camping where I swear I counted the amount of kids that were going with the amount of sleeping bags that needed to go. Because as I got older, I got put in charge of all of this. And, counting the right amount of sleeping bags for the right amount of people. You'd think I would learn my lesson. But like the last major time that my wife and I went camping, I completely forgot her sleeping bag. You couldn't believe like how if you've never had to deal with something like that before, it's just you're just sitting there going, there's no words. And kind of turned like a negative into a positive because we went to the closest thing that they had for a store, like in these small towns, it's just kind of like an everything store. And they happened to have, for some insane reason, just like the best sleeping bag that I've ever seen in my life. And for almost nothing, I couldn't believe it. And ever since I got her that bag, she just like sleeps like a baby camping. Just crazy. And the funny thing is too is like men's sleeping bags and women's sleeping bags are already like vastly different. But people will try to argue otherwise and whatever. But I would say if you have to bug out with a family and you're just completely brand new, you're kind of gonna be okay just treating it not even like a camping trip. Like if you've ever been on vacation with your family before, you're all gonna have like suitcases and clothes, and you're gonna know what kind of climate grandma's house is in. But if you always go to grandma's house, there's nothing to say you can't leave some quote unquote leave some clothes at grandma's house. So there's less clothes. But I'm sure people are saying, shovel and car kit and everything. And I used to rock like a couple different car kits and a couple different camping kits, but I started just to psych myself out more and more, worried that they were just going to get stolen. I had a friend who's extremely, extremely valuable, irreplaceable gear once they tracked him home. Stole all the stuff out of his car while he was bringing his groceries in. He was in for like 30 seconds, and that was enough for them to grab his gear. And so I'm not a big proponent anymore of like leaving really good emergency kits in the car at all, ever. I just stopped going places in the winter as much as I can. But yeah, I think I feel like having I feel like having an emergency kit. This is kind of like a stupid AI question. It says emergency kit, but then it says bug out bag. Again, this is why you don't let AI make your prepper videos for you. A vehicle emergency kit is completely different from a bug out bag. If it was just the vehicle, like because of the vehicle itself and not survival, besides the jumper pack, because I think everybody should have a jumper pack in their car, and you need to check that thing every 6 months also. Don't make the same mistake I did this last time. And it needs to be a really good jumper pack, not a cheap China copy jumper pack. But the other thing is carrying a Ryobi makes like really little air compressors now, and I'm not worried about it with my car. We've got an older car. All the newer cars have tire sensors now that are insanely sensitive, and a lot of these cars now won't let you drive if the tire sensor's freaking out. So if I had a new car with tire sensors, the first thing I would put in the car is a portable air compressor, and then knowing what your tire pressure is supposed to be. People make fun of millennials at tire places, but a lot of the reason why those millennials are at the tire station is because it's not their fault. Their tire sensors are being stupid. So that was kind of like a two-parter, but there we go. Question number 4. I have a situation. Yeah, no shit. I'm overwhelmed by all the different timelines people talk about. 72 hours, 1 month, a year, and I have no idea where to start. How long should a total beginner realistically plan to be self-sufficient for at first? Wow. It's every single one of these questions seem to be like perfectly in order. That's weird. I didn't tell it to do that. 72 hours is almost overkill for some places, but then 72 hours is like almost nothing in some of the other shit. It's the fans shits that have hit the fans lately. But if we're pretending that you have no idea where to start, and also no idea how much money you have, 72 hours still is a pretty good starting point. And before you jump out of your chair and say that I'm a fake prepper or something, the reason why 72 hours is good for a couple of reasons. That's generally weather patterns usually last about 2.5 days, with about a half day in between weather patterns. So even if there's massive snowstorms, there's usually about a half a day where you can try to poke your head out and figure out what's going on. Even in every single really, really, really bad storm, nestled between two really bad storms, we've always been able to get out. Even with just, our front wheel drive SUV. So, and then also 72 hours is roughly how long it takes the grocery stores to do a full restock. So there's a good chance that the grocery stores will have been replenished within 72 hours. Also, in really bad storms, it can take the power companies about 3 days to turn the power on anyway. And I know I keep bringing up winter. This can happen in the summer too. In the summer, preserving your food is a little bit more rough. You got to cook up. In the summer, you got to cook up your food faster if you don't have off-grid power. But you can usually squeak your fridge by if you don't open it. And if you keep frozen water bottles, you can usually stretch your fridge out for 72 hours. If you have some kind of a camping stove or something, or barbecue. So 72 hours is a great place to start. Chances are you're going to be able to ride out almost every single little mini SHTF in 72 hours. That's a great place to start. And don't let... That's the whole funny thing about, like, talking about discouragement is, like, I think a lot of preppers will be like, well, it needs to be 1 month, and then 3 months, and then 6 months. And it's like, dude, calm down, man. Like, there's a lot of people who literally still don't have more than a day's worth of food in there. That's just because they live a block away from a Whole Foods. And anyway, yeah, start with 3 days. And then plan on bugging out after the second day into the third day. Timeline Tim the Terrified. Hopefully that helps. Question number 5. I have situation. Yeah, you do have situation. Money is tight right now, but I want to start building a food stockpile without going broke. What's a cheap and simple way to begin storing food that won't spoil quickly? Budget beans berry. Well, Survival Living's been doing a great series of videos on this. He happens to live in an area where there's some kind of like invasive fish that's edible. And he just keeps doing videos of catching those over and over and over and how to clean them and throw them in the freezer. Cell cats, there's a couple of them. I'm slowly picking it up as he does the videos. He's sick right now, so he needs your prayers. But who knows? You might live in an area with an edible invasive species that has no limits. It's pretty crazy. But won't spoil quickly. There's like solar dehydrators now, and you can sit there and just dehydrate till the cows come home. Using the sun. That's pretty crazy. Although, granted, I don't know how expensive those are. Then if you do have stuff you can forage, you can sit there and dehydrate it. I think the thing about a quote-unquote food stockpile is you don't need to do it all at once. It can be gradual, and it can be as simple as there's a bunch of food, a bunch of fruit in your yard, and you just need to figure out an affordable way of preserving it. And where you get into with dehydrators, you can get like those entry-level dehydrators that are stackable for almost nothing. Or, your neighbor might have an extra one, or your church might have an extra one. It's the electricity that gets you. And so that's what you have to watch out for, is if you're in an area with a crazy electricity bill. That's where, having like a battery and solar, yeah. It's tough. A lot of people will say canned food. Canned food's good, but you got to rotate it. I rotate ours through the church. But if you're on some kind of food cards, using your extra to get canned food, that's how we got started prepping. Is we were on food cards, and of course this was before the Rona, where you could, where everything was still affordable. It is a lot harder to do. You got to watch if you have Bi-Marts, Wincos. It's tough at Walmart because Walmart isn't stocked up that well anymore. Anyway, that's kind of a whole That's kind of a whole deal. Dehydrated. If you have any grocery stores that are like secondhand, like almost expired, what we do is we go to those places and we just grab a bunch of beans and rice, and then Food Saver it all. And yeah, I know Food Savers are expensive, but usually someone will let you borrow theirs. So like if you're at a church, convince the church to have like a Food Saver day. And everyone brings in their Food Savers, and someone shows you how to Food Saver your beans and rice, and then brings in the packets and stuff, so they're safe. All right, moving right along. Question number 6. I have situation. Yeah. We lose power a few times a year during storms, and I'm on a super tight budget with no tools or experience. Do I really need a generator right away, or are there better, cheaper power options for a newbie like me? Blackout Bernie the Broke. Okay. It's I need to work with the AI a little bit to like have it be a little bit more specific. But I've been talking to a lot of people about grid down stuff, and a lot of people are trying to do like off-grid power when they don't actually need off-grid power. If you don't have a bunch of fridges or CPAP, freezers, someone with like type 1 diabetes that needs their insulin cooled, or there's a couple of other medicines that have to be refrigerated. One of mine has to be refrigerated too. You might not actually need off-grid power if it's only for a couple days. You can, well, at least the last time I checked at Walmart, you can still get like tea light candles for almost nothing. And tea light candles are so cool. They're the teeny tiny little discs, they look like teeny tiny hockey pucks with a wick sticking out. You can get ones that last like, if they say 2 hours, just plan on 1 hour. If they say 4 hours, it's about 2 hours. And you can turn them off when you don't need them and save them with gel. And there's also one of my personal favorite camping tools in the whole world is a tea light lantern. So cool. Super vintage, cool boomer tech. And then just like propane, camping stuff, just, don't gas yourself out. Don't barbecue in your house or anything. But like, I would still say probably, I don't know what I'd say, 80 to 90% of people don't really need off-grid power. The thing that still blows my mind though is how few people even have a little battery bank for their phone. You can get a 10-watt panel for almost nothing, and again, get a reputable battery bank, not China crap. So if you're getting a teeny tiny one, just get an Anchor. Very reputable brand for teeny tiny power banks for your phone. You should have a way of charging your phone. The new Baofengs are all USB-C, so your little power bank can charge your USB-C, but no, you don't need. I think most people get a generator and they don't test it, they don't practice with it, they don't know how to use it, they don't know what use cases it's for, and they're kind of hosed. And then it just gets stolen because they have no way of defending it. I think it's interesting with batteries is I think most people figured out immediately, just intuitively realized that like they've got to get the right batteries for the right thing. And people don't do that with generators. I don't think people understand how generators work at all, or how to right size them at all. And so they're not optimized. Whereas like with batteries, like people actually try to optimize them. I think that's smart. That's certainly like what I did. Rum bum 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 bum. The cat's running. 2 in the question number 7. I have situation. I live in your area dash suburban Midwest slash city slash coast slash etc. And I'm not sure what disasters are actually likely here. How do I figure out the real threats I should prep for my specific location? Location Larry the Lost. Man, that is the hot topic right now. I have a couple different friends here that are flooded out, and it's interesting. At least one of them said that I think the county or the something build a new off ramp or on ramp, and it changed like the floodwaters and flooded like a whole town out. And this has maybe happened to a couple towns now. There's going to be some serious conversations with some serious legal people involved. I'm sure all over Washington and Oregon right now. I used to live down by Johnson Creek, and I'm sure they thought that they fixed Johnson Creek last time, but based on the videos, they did not fix Johnson Creek. So there's like historical websites and stuff that you can go to, and you can try to figure out, insurance knows, where the floodplains are, where the lowlands, you're below sea level or sea level, how high above sea level you are. There's a lot of that. Obviously, if you have like 2 brain cells to rub together, you're going to know whether you're in a tornado area, if you're on the Cascadia Fault, if you give a shit about earthquakes, which I don't. If you're, in a hurricane area, if you're where Godzilla likes to walk by, if you're near a volcano. And if you're in a high crime area, which they're trying to obfuscate a lot of the crime now, the crime statistics and where the child predators are and where all the offenders are. They're trying to hide a lot of that because it's affecting property value a lot, and it's driving people away from those areas. So they're trying to hide how bad the homeless and how bad the fentanyl meth problems are. And even here in our area, we thought this was a really safe area. It was in the middle of nowhere. Well, I'm fairly sure, because there was 2 houses on opposite sides of town, both tire forts, I call them, both meth houses, and they must have feuded, and I think they wiped each other out. I know I've talked about that in the past. I think that's finally what did it. I think a bunch of them unalived and hid the bodies of the other ones because they never found the bodies. But they're all gone now. Both of them, apparently. One of them is, I think the other one maybe too. I'll ask. I know someone who lives down. But my point is like you don't know like a lot of that stuff. You can what I used to recommend to people, especially if they're going to buy a new house, is hang out at the new house for like as long as you can. You might not realize that there's a train that goes nearby, or that there's a homeless camp across the street. Like one of the places we almost moved to, you could totally tell that there had been a pretty sizable homeless camp. They tend to live near rivers for obvious reasons. It's just a natural human thing. So, if there's a river nearby, go check it out. And now you might not want to walk down there with your wife and kid with you, but you can definitely send a drone to look things out, and you can review the footage later. Just do your basic recon. It's called area studies. You can check the tax assessment stuff. You can check Google Maps. You could go to a park nearby and fly a drone around. Have someone watch your back, obviously, when you're doing. Go to the local grocery store, see how people act. There's a lot of different ways, but it's a lot of like human, like intel, a lot of recon, a lot of research. And when we picked this place out, we did tons of research, and then we moved in and we still did tons more research. And there was still, it was bad. You're never going to find a perfect safe place to live. There's always going to be something wrong. It's about mitigating those risks. So you have to try to figure out what the risks are. Thankfully, I can at least moderately deal with meth head problems, being as I'm from the city and I've been dealing with meth head problems for a good chunk of my yeah, I'd rather deal with that than floodwaters. Anyway, hopefully, yeah. Google Maps is shockingly useful now. All the satellite footage, and you can like go back in time. That's pretty crazy. There's a lot of just open source intel now that you can grab, and then there's Nextdoor, and there's a couple of other. Then there's the local Facebook. If you can get your hands on like the local newspapers, some of these small towns still have news. Or you can go to the local library and see if they have a copy of every single newspaper. There's tons and tons of ways. Sometimes you can like talk to the sheriff, but there's no guarantee in these small towns that all the sheriffs and all the cops aren't corrupt. All of them. And so sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And right here in Washington, they're trying to do away with having sheriffs even be elected to where they can just pick the sheriffs from now. I heard they were trying to pass that. It's pretty insane. All right. Question 8. I have situation. I've started quietly stocking some basics, but I'm worried about security of things. Wow, this isn't actually insane. It sorted these questions. I'm worried about security if things get bad. Is it smarter to keep my preps completely hidden, or should I tell trusted neighbors or family about them? Secret Stasher Steve. No, I wouldn't tell anybody about them. And I would smuggle them in the house as quietly and carefully as you can. Even if that means backing the car into the garage and then unloading the groceries directly into the garage. I wouldn't tell anybody. Some people go as far as to like actually buy their stuff in a completely different town and bring it back. You got to make sure you're not followed too. I tell this story probably a lot, but where we used to live, the people at the local grocery store knew I prepped. I mean, they saw us buying stuff at the grocery store, and they saw the magazines, and they knew where we lived. Said they were coming over to our house, and said they would eat our cats and stuff. So, I mean, it can get pretty bad. Like, I would not tell anybody. Don't tell them you have, self-protecting stuff. One of my friends used to, every time we would go out shooting, he would yell into the whole subdivision that I was a part of the militia. He would just yell it over and over, and he would yell at the neighbors, and he would point, "You guys in a militia." Every time I'd load my stuff in his car. He thought it was hilarious, but it's just like that normalcy bias. And I've also known, I know, people who have vaults, more guns, and more ammo than you could arm a whole subdivision, right? And nobody knew he had it. Nobody knew he had an entire vault in his house. And it was right in the middle of suburbia. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell a single person. Don't tell a single person in your whole family, because your family will blab, because they'll brag, because it'll turn into something that they can spin to their social. Don't tell anybody. And if a family, but watch, this is going to be, yeah, I'm scanning forward, and this is going into future questions, but what I did is if any family member are concerned, I tell them to start caching stuff at my house, but I still don't tell them that I have anything. That way, if they're stupid enough to tell somebody else that they've cached stuff there, that's on them. And that's how I mitigate. Hope that helps, Secret Stasher Steve. Okay, question number 9. I have situation. I have 0 survival skills beyond cooking on a stove and using YouTube. What's the one most important skill every beginner prepper should learn first? Skillless Sam the Scared. 0 survival skills beyond cooking. The most important skill. What is the most... What... That could be like an hour-long, 0-hour... What is the number one important skill? That's an even more insane question than what... At least what you should prep is kind of obvious. It's water. Water being more important than bullets, bandages, bullets, bandages. I forgot what the other... bullets, bandages. Anyway, the most important skill, I mean, God, it's so stupid. It's medical, right? Like, because it doesn't have to be shit it's the fan for someone to get hurt. I mean, that all of a sudden then that becomes shit it's the fan. Like, I was pulling T-posts and I fell right into the T-posts and just like, it was bad. And it would have healed up pretty fast if we had changed a couple things that we were doing. Actually, not me. My wife was doing an amazing job. I was doing a terrible job because I naively thought that the non-stick gauze was going to be non-stick, and it was not non-stick. And it actually made things worse, not better. She had the right idea. Me dumb. She good. And I would also say, like, you knowing medical is not all that super helpful, because if you're the man, chances are you're the one that's going to get hurt. So it's actually like your wife and your kids training. Stop the bleed. You know, you can, even if your like wife is like not a prepper, you know, taking people to stop the bleed that the fire department does or that the EMTs do for free, like, that's not very preppery. And that's a lot more palatable to people who are anti-prepper but pro. It's so dumb. I've been talking to people about a lot of new ways of getting into people prepping without calling it prepping. And EMTs and fire department doing stop the bleed is like one of them. Right. Question number 10. Last but not least. I have situation. My friends and family already tease me about being cautious, and I don't want them thinking I've gone full conspiracy mode. How do I start prepping seriously without everyone assuming I've lost it and gone tinfoil hat crazy? Closet prepper Carl. I think your friends and family don't need to know, as long as they don't have some way of figuring out what you've been if you've been spending money in unusual ways. On the surface, this seems like a really stupid question, but it's actually, this should be reworded, whereas like my spouse is teasing. Because hiding your money from your spouse is like really hard. With your friends and your family, you just have to make sure if they're used to doing anything with you that costs money, that's when you have to try to figure out how to navigate all that. And it might be getting a second job without them, although they're going to know you get a second job. I've never had to do it before. Like, the shitty thing now is like, it's not like you can go to cash your check and then get some of it as cash and then hide the cash. But there's other things you could do now. Like, you could do it as a pay in four with no interest, and then they wouldn't notice that your spending habits have changed. But you gotta be so careful that you manage that like a hawk. Otherwise, you just tell them something like you have a crippling porn addiction, costs money. I don't. Sometimes people will like believe really, really, really stupid shit, like you've got a gambling addiction or you've got an alcohol addiction. Although don't make it something where they're gonna try to drag you to AA if you don't actually. Kind of weird. But I would definitely say something like I'm saving up a car repair fund, or I'm saving up a roof repair fund. But then you got to make sure if you're having like a safe delivered to your house that they don't come over when you're like delivering your safe. It's rough. Like you, I don't know what to call that. Like stealth prepping. You know, I would tell them that you're interested in the outdoors and you want to be the outdoorsy type, and being an avid outdoorsman covers probably 80% of prepping. You don't have to tell them that you're hunting or fishing or hunting Sasquatch or whatever it is. Like, even if you're like bird watching, or even if you're going to get into photography, you know, if you're going to go take pictures of the mountain, you're still like 80% of the way there. And if they go, oh, why do you have that 44 Magnum? Because there's bears. You know, like, for example, you know what I mean? Like, there's ways to where you could probably get 90% there. You know, as long as they don't see like your AR, then they're gonna just lose their balls. Or they'll see your Glock, lose their balls. Because anything's scary in black. But that's why, like, get like an AK, and then just like, no, look, it's got wood. It's got wood. It's okay. It's not polymer. It's wood. It's an SKS, or it's a Mosin, or it's an M1. Look, it's okay. It's not a scary black rifle. I mean, that's how naive people are. They see black and immediately think it's illegal because that's what the news has been telling them for 20 or 30 years, 40 years, Brady Bill. The big mistake people make is they get out and they show it all to somebody before they really vetted them. So anyway, I guess this is the end. This is the end of the episode. I hope you liked it. This was actually more fun. This was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be stale and boring, but I just have to find a way of tweaking the AI so it doesn't look all this like all this was in like a convenient linear progressive set of questions. Anyway, thanks, and check out my Bunker Basics book, and where I cover all of this and more. At least I think I do. I'm trying to. Although this is all basic stuff, but it's all basic stuff. But if you go into a bunker, it's probably all already in there. That's why I like the premise of that book, because you don't have to worry about this. You can learn it all the other direction. I would say just do your best. That's what I tell everybody at work. Just do your best. That's all you can do. If you're even like 20% more prepped than people who have absolutely nothing ready to go, you're still doing pretty stinking good. Okay? Even if you just dehydrate a little bit of fruit, that's how we started when we moved in. The first thing we did was dehydrated fruit. We just went down to the local hardware store, and they had a fruit dehydrator. And we grabbed it, and then we sliced up fruit, and that was our preps for the first year. Just do your best. That's all you got. That's all you got to do. You don't have to learn canning, jarring. Go spend $1 Brazilian getting a what are those expensive food dehydrator things called? Flat freeze dryers. You know, you move into a rural area, chances are someone around you already has one. So, and how we found out about that is as soon as we moved in, our neighbors wanted to pick our fruit, and they told us. So, like, just be easy. Be easy on yourselves. There's still time to prep. I know I keep telling everybody that. There's still time to prep, and we make it through this together. We'll all make it through this together. You don't need to spend a ton of money. Same thing with radios. You don't need to spend a ton of money because someone else around you probably already has extra radios. People around you already have extra food prepping systems in place. They probably lack the fruit or the meats, but they have the systems in place to be able to do it. And so usually it's just go to the church, find a church, go to the church and find the people. And maybe you can even convince the church to have prepping day. It's really easy to convince churches that they need to do that now because everyone's lining the churches up as being the bad guys. So anyway, y'all take care of yourselves and check out my book, please. Bunker Basics. Spring 2026 edition is going to incorporate everybody's feedback. So the more feedback, the better. And don't forget to leave reviews. Talk to you all later. Bye.